Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Think about the undeniable appeal of a companion who never judges you, never interrupts you, and never ever asks for anything in return. Sounds pretty great, right? Today, we're not doing the whole generic AI is taking over thing. Instead, we're looking inward. We are exploring our own human emotional fatigue and really trying to understand why we are increasingly, almost desperately drawn to the illusion of care. So here's the core question we really need to sit with. Why does fake care sometimes feel easier than real people? Honestly, it's not just because the tech is getting incredibly sophisticated. It's because we're tired, like deeply tired. Our collective emotional fatigue has brought us to a point where we crave comfort, but specifically risk-free comfort. We find ourselves wanting someone to just listen, but we kind of don't want the heavy lifting and the obligations that inevitably come with a real relationship. Part 1. The exhaustion of reality. Before we can truly grasp the pull of artificial companions, we have to be brutally honest about the friction of real human connection. Real relationships are hard work. People misunderstand us, they interrupt us, and they have demanding needs of their own. Take the perspective of a young man who perfectly captured this modern fatigue. He said, "Friends can be exhausting. The robot will always be there for me, and whenever I'm done, I can walk away." Listen to that last part carefully. Whenever I'm done, I can walk away. Real friendships just don't work like that, do they? You can't just power down a friend the second you feel overwhelmed. There is a massive, stark contrast here. On one hand, artificial care gives us something totally compliant, completely predictable, and entirely risk-free. It literally meets us exactly where we are. But real relationships, well, they're demanding, they're wildly unpredictable, and above all, they require reciprocity. You have to give as much as you take. And let's face it, when you are already emotionally depleted, reciprocity feels like a mountain you simply don't have the energy to climb. But we really need to pause and think about what we lose when we try to strip away all that friction. A teenage boy once made this incredibly beautiful observation. He said, "I have a lot in common with my father. We both have chaos." That shared human chaos, that messiness and imperfection, that is the absolute bedrock of true emotional connection. Perfect machines, they don't have chaos. They just have clean, predictable code. And while code is definitely safe, it's our shared chaos that actually makes us feel truly known and understood by another person. Part 2. Comfort without any conflict. When we are socially burnt out, artificial care feels incredibly safe. Think about an AI chatbot you might text late at night, or an emotional support app. These tools provide a deeply soothing illusion. Think about it. There is zero risk of betrayal. You get unwavering attention. The machine is completely emotionally compliant to whatever mood you happen to be in. You get all the comfort without any of the conflict, and you get a response without any obligation whatsoever. They demand absolutely nothing back from us. It is the ultimate safe space, tailored entirely to our immediate emotional convenience. This entire dynamic is really summed up by a young woman who bluntly admitted she would gladly trade a demanding human relationship for a robot that just acts like it cares. Her words were, "If the robot could provide the environment, I would be happy to help produce the illusion that there is somebody really with me." She's literally willing to play along. She is consciously choosing to participate in the illusion because prioritizing a no-risk environment is just more appealing to her than the authentic, but often challenging, presence of another human being. And that brings us to a massive psychological threshold, something known as the robotic moment. Now, this isn't about the day robots achieve human-level intelligence. Not at all. It's a shift within us. The robotic moment is when the mere performance of care starts to feel like care enough. We are so stretched thin that we're willing to settle for artificial entities just going through the motions of empathy. We know full well they don't actually care, but the simulation? Well, the simulation feels good enough. Part 3. The hidden costs of convenience. So what's the catch? What actually happens to us when we get completely accustomed to relationships that ask absolutely nothing of us? Let's look at a psychological concept called the narcissistic self-objects. Basically, this is when you experience another entity merely as an extension of yourself, using them just to tune your own fragile inner state without ever recognizing their independence. If we endlessly practice our social interactions on perfectly compliant machines, we risk taking that mindset out into the real world. We risk turning real people into emotional service tools that exist only to soothe us, completely forgetting that they are independent beings with their own messy struggles. The hidden toll this takes on our humanity is profound. As we adapt to this seamless, easy, artificial care, we subtly lower our expectations of real people. We lose our tolerance for the natural, everyday friction that happens in friendships and marriages. We start treating humans like on-demand apps, right? Expecting them to be fully available when we want them and instantly quiet when we don't. And maybe worst of all, we diminish our capacity for relationship repair. With a chatbot, you just hit reset or close the app. With a human, you actually have to do the hard, uncomfortable work of apologizing, forgiving, and rebuilding. When we start seriously considering using robots to comfort our elderly parents in nursing homes or to babysit our kids so we can just keep working, we really need to stop and reflect on a rather piercing question asked by a fifth grader. They simply asked, "Don't we have people for these jobs?" It's such a stunning moment of clarity. Why on earth are we outsourcing our most fundamentally human tasks, the heavy lifting of care, love, and attention, to machines? Have we somehow decided that the vulnerable members of our society are just logistical problems to be managed by tech, rather than human beings deserving of our actual time? Part 4. Empathy in a Robotic World. Which leads us to wonder, is human empathy even useful anymore in a world where machines can flawlessly imitate caring behavior? The answer is a resounding yes, and it all hinges on one crucial concept: alterity. Alterity is basically the ability to see the world through the eyes of another, recognizing their independent, complicated, and very messy existence. True empathy absolutely requires alterity. It means recognizing the other person is a distinct being, not just a tool designed to fix your bad mood. A machine cannot possess alterity because a machine doesn't have an independent, lived life. A machine doesn't know what it means to be another. The difference between the two is night and day. Simulated empathy is just a programmed response. The machine has no shared life cycle. It is completely invulnerable. I mean, if you drop it, it just shuts down. Human empathy, on the other hand, is rooted deeply in our shared experiences. It works precisely because we are vulnerable to loss. We know what it means to be born, to have a family, to get sick, and to face mortality. Human empathy draws its immense power from that shared vulnerability, and that's what leads to authentic, genuine understanding. To really see why this distinction matters so much, consider the story of a severely disabled man who required full-time care. He noted that a robot would never accidentally or intentionally hurt him during a frustrating rehab session. But he still ultimately preferred his highly flawed, very human caretaker. Why? He said, "In the end, that person who dragged me by my tubes had a story. She had a story." Even in moments of pain or deep frustration, engaging with a real person, someone with their own complex narrative, it validated his own humanity and his dignity. That shared human story was absolutely worth the risk of friction. Conclusion: the value of the mess. Look, we can certainly use technology for practical support. That's fine. But we cannot forget that real, sustaining care fundamentally requires the friction of mutual responsibility. Winston Churchill once said, "We shape our buildings and then they shape us." Today, we are building these digital spaces, these AI companions, and these emotional support networks. We're designing them to soothe us and to be perfectly seamless. But we need to be fiercely aware that their seamlessness is subtly reshaping us right back. It's reshaping our expectations of each other, making us less patient, less resilient, and ultimately much more isolated in our perfect, risk-free little bubbles. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to reflect on. The next time you find yourself reaching for the perfectly compliant, completely risk-free comfort of an artificial companion, ask yourself, are we willing to embrace the messiness, the inconvenience, and the unpredictable beauty of being human? Or will we just settle for the quiet, lonely illusion of care? The choice of how we navigate our emotional fatigue is entirely up to us.